Hey everyone, my name is Jose and we seriously need better cross-device connectivity. I'm sure we have all had a moment, at least once, where we needed to send a file like an image or a video in its complete quality without any compression, but we struggled on finding a way to send that file uncompressed. This usually occurs when you're trying to send media through MMS, which is the media layer for SMS, so your cellular network. And the media is very compressed because MMS doesn't support high quality file transfer. However, SMS and MMS is slowly dying out because we have instant messengers like iMessage and WhatsApp, and basically the infrastructure behind instant messengers is very robust that it makes SMS and MMS completely obsolete. Keep in mind that SMS was invented in 1984 and MMS started to get used around in 2002. So these protocols and layers are seriously archaic, that they don't fit our updated lifestyle of sending 4K videos and high megapixel images to each other. So instant messengers like iMessage and even Google Messages with its newly implemented RCS protocol solves a lot of the problems that SMS doesn't support. So with RCS and iMessage, you get support for encrypted messaging, typing indicators, support for high quality media sharing, and a bunch of other features that are standard in most instant messengers. Alright, so problem solved, right? Just use an instant messenger. Thank you for watching, but that's not a complete solution. I mean, yes, if you use iMessage or RCS, you can send higher quality media to recipients, but there's two problems with this. One is that it's proprietary code, and two, a big focus of this video, it's not cross-platform or cross-device. So let's say you have a friend and you want to send them a video you took of your pet in high quality. You can do that with RCS and iMessage, no problem. But what if one of you has an Android phone and the other one an Apple device? That's part of the focus of this video, finding out which service or application is out there that matches what you want in a file sharing client or system. Because this problem isn't just oh, I have an iPhone, you have an Android, we can't use RCS or iMessage problem. Sometimes you might want to send a relatively large file or multiple files to someone, but a problem that usually occurs is what platform you are on. Think about it. There's plenty of platforms, aka operating systems, that work in their own way, and there's not really a universal way for these platforms to communicate with each other. If you have an Android or Apple phone, a universal protocol that bridges them together in a way is SMS and MMS for communication. But if you want your Android phone to communicate with your Windows computer, things get a bit complicated because Windows machines don't use SMS to send messages. And I guess there's HTTP and whatever protocols to communicate, but what I'm trying to say is that there's no easy way for your Android phone to communicate with a Windows machine, for example. Sure, there is the Windows Phone Companion app and stuff like AirDroid, which makes cross-device connectivity fairly convenient, but a problem I have is that they have proprietary code and are not super privacy respecting. So now I'm going to tell you about free and open source projects that make cross-device connectivity easy, but they're also available on all major platforms like Android, iOS, Mac, Linux, everything. And these free and open source projects have some sort of security slash privacy element to it. So like data encryption or no data logging. There's 5 categories I will be mentioning one at a time. So we have cloud hosting, decentralized nodes, WebRTC transfer, LAN peer-to-peer, and instant messengers regardless of their infrastructure. Starting off with cloud hosting or centralized server reliant services, these services are probably the most convenient out of all of the other categories. So with the cloud service, you just upload your media into a single folder and share that link to whoever you want. It doesn't matter if you uploaded that media from your computer and then share that link to someone who is using their phone to download that media, because the web is pretty much universal no matter what device you are using. And it doesn't matter if like 5 hours passes by after you sent that link to someone and then that person decides right now, 5 hours later, that they want to start downloading that folder. It's kind of like a set and forget solution where you upload the media, and as long as the link is active, the recipient can download that media at any time without any restrictions on your part. I mention this because in the other 4 categories, the solutions for those categories actually require a constant connection between you and the recipient throughout the entire file transfer. So basically, your device and their device needs to be working on sending and receiving the file until the transfer is complete, because it's a direct transfer and not using a cloud hosting solution. So there is pretty good reason to use a cloud server or centralized server for file sharing, but a big problem with most popular cloud services is that they are not open source, nor do they have zero knowledge encryption. I mean, depending on what you think, you might find something like Dropbox to be completely fine, even though it doesn't have that encryption or is open source. I mean, it's fine if you use Dropbox, but that's something I won't be recommending for this particular topic. So what do I recommend for secure and easy file sharing via the cloud? Let's start with Fillin.io, which I have used before to store my photo samples from my recent photography videos. I like Fillin.io because they have zero knowledge encryption. The pricing is very reasonable with 10 gigabytes storage on the free plan. It has unlimited bandwidth sharing, open source apps, and it has apps for all platforms. It's like Dropbox, but with the things I actually wanted to have. There's also Sync, which is very similar to Fillin. It has unlimited bandwidth, apps for all platforms, a reasonable free plan with 5 gigabytes of storage, robust encryption, and between Sync and Fillin, Sync is built with file sharing in mind for a work or team productivity design, but it still works to send files across. I also don't think that Sync is open source, but it's a very good service in my opinion. Quick mention is Proton Drive from the team who created Proton Mail. It's in beta for paid users, but given the reputation from the Proton company name, Proton Drive should be very secure. Just a quick note, everything I recommended so far and will recommend later on in the video, I'm not sponsored for any of this, and these are just my own recommendations and assessments, just to make sure, alright? Also, I'm going to split these next recommendations as part of cloud hosting, except these services are meant for temporary cloud hosting. So with something like Fillin, the way you share a file first requires you to create an account so that you can upload that media to a folder and then share that link to someone. Temporary cloud hosting keeps the convenience of sending a file to a server and then sharing that link to someone, except that link is temporary. So you can set it after a certain amount of downloads, like a one-time download or a limit of 10 downloads. The link will expire and the file won't be able to download again. Sync and Fill-In have download restrictions like that, except temporary cloud hosting doesn't require you to make an account for you to upload that file to the cloud. Send is a free and open source project based around Firefox Send, which was discontinued in 2020 because too many people were using Firefox Send to upload and distribute malware. So Send is a fork of Firefox Send, and there is a bunch of different instances of it, meaning many different people are using the same code to run Send on their own server. Some servers have longer file retention than others, and some have higher file size upload limits. I guess I'll recommend the default instance for Send managed by the creator of this forked project. Send has end-to-end encryption, making sure your files are shared securely, and has download and time restrictions. Another one like Send is Oshi, which has file encryption, download restrictions, no server logs, stuff like that. Before we move on to the next category, I have a quick bonus service that I want to recommend for sharing game clips. If you want to share a quick highlight, there's catbox.moe and Litterbox. The reason I recommend it is because when you send a link of your video, it goes straight to the file itself so that you can instantly watch it in your browser and don't need to download it. It replaces something like Streamable because Streamable requires an account to upload clips. It's pretty handy with Litterbox made for temporary file sharing, and Catbox has longer file retention. A little downside is that Catbox and Litterbox isn't open source, nor does it have file encryption. But if it's just to use the service in place of Discord's file sizing limits, then I think it's a good alternative. Now onto the next category of file sharing via a decentralized node system. So the reason I'm including this category is because it sort of cuts out the middleman of using a centralized server like with cloud hosting. A service like Fill-In or Send is good because you get the benefits of allowing a server to do the file retention for you, but also has encryption, making sure that only your recipient can access the file. Even though the server mathematically can't access the file like instantly, you're still putting trust on a central server to do this for you, even though it may be open source and stuff. So with decentralized file sharing, you route your file through multiple servers before it reaches your recipient, making sure that your entry node doesn't know who you're sending that file to because of the multiple hops through the multiple server nodes. The only downside to decentralized file sharing is the speed, which can be incredibly slow, but if you're going down this route, I'm assuming that isn't too bad for you. Though the other reason I'm bringing up decentralized file sharing is because they generally do not have file size limits. So if you wanted to send like a really big file package or something in a secure way, this could be an option. Granted, you can still send very small files if you wanted to, but I kind of wanted to focus on the capability of sending file sizes with no size limit, so basically sending anything you wanted. First up, we have OnionShare, which uses the Tor network to send files. If you wanted to send really big files over the Tor network, that will seriously take forever, but still an option if you have the patience. Unfortunately, OnionShare is only available on desktop platforms for sending a file, but if you are on mobile, all you need is to download a browser compatible with Tor and you'll be able to receive that file. Next is Surge, which is another decentralized file sharing client using the NKN blockchain. Just like OnionShare and the Tor network, Surge has multiple security layers and node hops. Surge is in very early stages of development and is lacking features like adding a trusted friend to send files instead of using an open room system to do so. But at least at some point, I see this as a direct competitor to OnionShare because it has potential. On to the next category, which honestly I find to be the most useful and is the main focus of this video, WebRTC transfer. For quick reference, WebRTC is a standard protocol that is used for live data feedback in real time for video and voice chat. So if you use a video conferencing service within your web browser, like Google Meet, that uses WebRTC to transmit your video and voice. Discord also uses WebRTC in the application for voice and video calls. Now, what's really nice about WebRTC is that it's a really lightweight protocol and has data encryption and is pretty snappy given that it's used in web conferencing. So far, we have looked at cloud hosting and decentralized file sharing where you send a file to a recipient. But what if that recipient is yourself? Like in the beginning of the video where I talked about using one of these services because you want to send a file to someone because you or your recipient doesn't have like iMessage or something to send that file through. Well, the problem drastically changes when that intended recipient is yourself. If you have an Android phone and a Windows machine and you want to get files across from one system to the next, how are you going to do that? In the beginning of the video, I told you about the phone companion app, but then I also told you that I'm looking for free and open source software to replace that. Well, that's this section. The next few services I'm going to recommend to you are super helpful in solving this problem. They are helpful because these are sites that you can open in any browser, bookmark them for later, and the entire process is simple. The first one is Airdrop, which takes its name from Apple Airdrop, and it functions in a similar manner too. Open Airdrop on one device, so like your phone, and then on another device, so a computer, and you'll see that instantly your devices are recognizable. Then just send your files and even links or text messages to your other device, and now those files or links are instantly transferred on your device. There's also others such as Snapdrop, Blimp, Blaze, and others, but they all work the same way. Keep in mind that in order for Airdrop to work instantly, your devices need to be connected to the same Wi-Fi network. But I'm pretty certain that if you're at home or something and you need to send files across your devices, then pretty much your devices are already going to be connected to the same Wi-Fi network. So it's not really an issue. It's pretty awesome that Airdrop and Snapdrop can make sharing files across like incredibly easy without even downloading any software. All you need is a web browser and for your devices to be connected to the same network. So pretty much you no longer need to like email yourself a link or one single image to get that link or image across to another computer, because it never really made sense to me of emailing yourself something to get something across to another device as a viable solution in doing so. But I guess now Airdrop and the other WebRTC services is a great replacement and actually a viable solution, replacing what emailing yourself was supposed to accomplish. And these services use WebRTC to securely transfer your files from one device to the next. And the best part about all of this is that the web server itself never actually has to receive your file in order for it to be sent to the recipient. All the website does is actually like host the website for your devices to connect to, and it's also responsible for making local network discovery possible because of the website, but it doesn't actually receive your file to transfer those files. So sharing files using like AirDrop with WebRTC is very fast because your router is doing all of the work and not any other server. Again, only a signaling server, which is the website itself, is used to make your devices discover each other, but that's not responsible for file transfer. Now, what if you wanted to use WebRTC to send a file to someone that is not on your local network? Well, you can actually use these same services to do that. With AirDrop, all you need to do is share your AirDrop room link, which allows file transfer outside of your network, but the better option I would like to recommend is something like Blaze, because Blaze makes a virtual room on your network that you share with someone else that's not on your network, and it's the same thing with Blimp, because Blimp uses a code. And even when someone is not on your network and you're sharing the file to them, well, the file transfer speed is still fast because there's no middleman involved. I guess this is also a good time to mention Instant.io and BetaTorrent, which uses the WebTorrent protocol for file transfer. It's like the BitTorrent protocol, but optimized for the web. I felt like mentioning this because web torrents are pretty optimized for sending files, especially to multiple people outside of your network rather than to yourself. So if you need to send a relatively large file using the WebTorrent protocol, then it can be pretty snappy like WebRTC. So in a way, I kind of recommend using WebRTC to send files to yourself within your own network, and then probably use web torrents for sending something outside of your network if that's something you probably want to look into. If you're on mobile, I also recommend that you add these services to your homepage within the Add to Homepage feature in your web browsers. That way you turn these services into a progressive web app where all you need to do is click the little app icon. It will open straight into the browser and you pretty much treat it like its own standalone app. Alright, so WebRTC file transfer is great for sending files and text messages across your devices like it's nothing. But what if I told you there was another way of doing this exact same thing? This is where we go into our next category, local peer-to-peer on LAN. Now, those WebRTC apps are peer-to-peer because those devices are connecting straight to each other, but the difference with LAN peer-to-peer is that there's no need for an external signaling server like how WebRTC uses that signaling server in order for your devices to connect to each other. Instead, LAN peer-to-peer creates a local hotspot address on your home network, and then you can input that address into any web browser on any of your devices, and it will take you straight to that file transfer coming from your other home network device. So that signaling process for your devices to connect to each other is all done locally on your home network, and it's all an internal process. First app for this is Sharek, which has apps on all platforms like Android, iOS, Windows, etc. Like I said, all you need to do is get the local IP address and input that into a browser. And for the record, no, this internal IP address does not contain any sensitive information. It's internal, which only devices on this network can communicate with. It is 1000% useless for external communication because internal IPs don't communicate the same way as external IPs. Now, if you want to receive a file inside of the Sharek app, both of your devices needs to have the Sharek app installed for this. But yes, the receiver could use a web browser for downloading the contents. You only need Sharek to send it. In a similar fashion, LANDrop works the exact same way. Everything is done internally on your network with local IP addresses. Alright, one more category to go, which is the obvious one, kind of. Instant messengers. If you download a messenger for you to send media to someone or to yourself, I guess that can work. If you're gonna use instant messengers to send stuff other than to someone else, so sending stuff to yourself from like an Android phone to a Windows machine, then instant messengers can be okay for that, but they won't work as well as the WebRTC and the LAN apps I showed you before, which are meant to share files internally inside of your network, which is better than instant messengers. So if you use an instant messenger like WhatsApp or Signal or whatever, that can work. I'd argue that trying to get yourself and someone else to use the same instant messenger for a file transfer is probably a way better idea than trying to make an arrangement with that same person of using a service like Blimp or Blaze or whatever for exclusively for that file transfer. I say this only if you message that person often enough that if it's a one-time thing for a file transfer, then yes, it's okay to make an arrangement of using like Blimp or Blaze. But if you contact this person often, then it's probably a good idea to get them to use an instant messenger just in case any file transfer comes up later on with your conversations. Because if you regularly contact someone, then getting them to use an instant messenger solves all of the problems that SMS has. I'm tired of saying instant messengers, so for the rest of this video, I'm just gonna say IMs from now on, because I should have done that earlier. So IMs, depending on which one you use, have a lot of potential and capability because they have potential support for typing indicators, secure protocols, video, voice chat, high quality file transfer. There's just a lot of potential to them that SMS just doesn't support. I'm saying this based off of the scenario that, oh, I have an iPhone, you have an Android, and our messaging just sucks because we use SMS to communicate. Download an IM to replace SMS communication, but which IM is good for file sharing? Well, let's focus on security and open source because that's the focus of this video, because I could just tell you to use Google Messages with RCS and iMessage and WhatsApp, but again, they're not open source, nor can we really audit that these messaging apps, IMs, are really that secure to use. So two really good secure and private IMs would be Session and Signal, but they're not really too good for file sharing because I think Signal has a upload limit of like 100 megabytes, and then Session has a really small upload limit of 6 megabytes. Though the roadmap does say that there will be support for higher quality file transfer sometime later on in the future. So maybe Session will be a good contender for file sharing in an IM. I've also done a video on Session before. You should go check that out. It's an interview with the CTO, and it's a really awesome video because it's actually my second video posted on this channel. So I really appreciate it if you can go check out that video. Alright, so is there any IM that is equipped with secure file sharing in mind? Well, I guess there is because we have stuff like Tox and Jammy. Both of these applications have secure file sharing with no limit on how big the file size is. So I guess it's really good for file sharing, though I do have problems with it. It doesn't have a good mobile app or even the desktop apps for both services. They're not really that good, but in my opinion, this kind of weighs with the pros that it's a peer-to-peer IM that connects you straight to your recipient. So it's pretty good for file sharing, I guess. So if you wanted an all-in-one file sharing client and IM, then I'm pretty sure Tox and Jammy are pretty good for that. But if I was you, I would just wait for Session to have its update so that its file size limits gets increased. Hopefully it doesn't have a file size limit in the future, but we'll wait and see for that. I guess this is a good time to continue talking about this problem about there being a lack of a universal protocol for cross-device connectivity. I mean, there's stuff like Bluetooth and NFC that you can actually use those protocols for file transfer, but it's really hard to set up and they're not really secure protocols either. So that's why we really need a different universal protocol for this. However, we have seen stuff like Apple Airdrop work pretty much flawlessly because if you have an iPhone and if someone else has an iPhone, you can pair with each other and just send files like really easily without any hassle. And you can even send files to yourself if you have like an iPhone and a MacBook, because MacBooks also have support for AirDrop so that you can send files across like it's nothing. Apple Airdrop is just dead simple. It's executed in a really simple process that makes file sharing incredibly easy. And I'm just super shocked that no other major company has tried to kind of copy of what Apple has achieved with its AirDrop implemented into the Apple ecosystem. So you can, you can AirDrop your MacBook and your iPhone devices together. I'm really shocked that no other major company has tried to kind of make a universal protocol that makes file sharing as easy as AirDrop that is also like multi-platform. Google, who owns Android, has somewhat replicated the Apple AirDrop feature with its own nearby share feature, which uses a combination of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi for file sharing across Android devices and Chromebooks as well. But I have three really big problems with nearby share. The first problem is the interface, which it has a compact UI, but it also has a settings page that I feel like is really buried inside of Android OS. The second problem I have with nearby share kind of relates to its function, because sometimes I try to activate it in the navigation panel with one press, but then like that press didn't activate my Bluetooth and location so that nearby share can be made readily available on my device for use, and I have to enable that manually, or there's some other buggy mess with nearby share that I have to dig into the settings app to activate manually, because sometimes you actually have to go into the settings app to enable nearby share even though it says it's active inside the navigation panel. And there's other things with it too, like I have to keep enabling to share outside of my contacts list, so with like an unknown Android, in order for that discovery of devices to be seen with each other. That's not too much of a big deal, but getting to that point of enabling discovery for everyone instead of just my contacts list is just kind of, again, buggy and annoying because of that compact UI that doesn't really work well, because I have to go to the settings page of nearby share to fix all of this and to set it up. But then there's an even bigger problem of nearby share, and it's probably the biggest problem of it all. I see nobody talking about it. Like, I'm pretty sure more people know about file sharing apps that you can find in the Play Store than they do actually know about the native nearby share file sharing function that's built into their phone. It's like with Apple AirDrop. Everyone knows about Apple AirDrop because, well, besides it being a popular feature, the UI makes it easy to turn on and set up and do all these things. With nearby share, I feel like it's really buried in the Android OS, and it shouldn't be buried because it's actually a really useful feature that is, again, universal. I really feel like Google just threw in this feature into Android OS, and if you know about it, then you know about it. If you don't know about it, then who cares? Because file sharing is not important or it doesn't deserve attention or whatever. I mean, I kind of find that to be ridiculous because so many people use Airdrop on Apple devices. So why wouldn't there be a high influx of people not only using nearby share on Android, but also about just knowing the existence of nearby share? In a poll conducted by Android Authority, 48% of respondents say they haven't used the nearby share feature, which means that the other half has at least tried it once. Granted, the audience for this poll was Android enthusiasts who are likely to know a lot about Android phones in general, but I feel like a global statistic for this is way more divided for people who actually don't know about this feature at all. And even so, Apple AirDrop and Android's nearby share are, well, not that universal because they're still exclusive to their respective operating systems because there's no cross function between them. But then, despite this, this is where all of the recommended apps I talked about today come into play. All of the apps I talked about today have their own strengths and weaknesses, but they all have something in common. They all make it possible for cross-device connectivity to work, and it works really well. I mean, some devices are super connected within their ecosystem, like Apple products, for example. You can copy an image from one device and send that to another like it's nothing. Connectivity like that is so very convenient that it's super seamless and very responsive. It would be really cool if my Android phone and computer could communicate with each other with file sharing and stuff without the need of an external app like the ones I talked about today, because they used a universal protocol to communicate. But this reality of a universal protocol for cross-device connectivity, I kind of don't see it happening anytime soon. I don't know the technical details that are required in order to make an Android phone and a Windows machine to communicate each other flawlessly. I don't know what you need to do to make that work, but in a way, just without a universal protocol, I don't think cross-device connectivity is really super possible on their own without requiring external software. For example, Huawei has a sharing feature like AirDrop called Huawei Share, but it has evolved beyond just file sharing between Huawei devices. You can share your screen, see your phone notifications on your Huawei laptop, and just plenty more. Integration within a manufacturer ecosystem makes file sharing and pretty much everything really simple and seamless and responsive. But in order to get this sort of ease of use from your devices in talking to each other, you need to be inside a specific manufacturer ecosystem, which really isn't that worth it in the end, because then you need to be locked up using that manufacturer ecosystem in order for you to achieve this ease of use. If you have two different devices coming from two different manufacturers, I don't really see a near reality where by default these devices can seamlessly communicate with each other, kind of how a manufacturer ecosystem like Apple's ecosystem works really well. I'm not saying that's a bad thing either, that this won't happen, but at least make file sharing easy. At least make some sort of universal protocol where my phone can communicate with my computer in a secure way, where I can send media and links and text messages and whatever between my devices. But at the same time, I just don't want to rely on the phone companion app in order to achieve this, because yeah, that's not open source. That's not really that secure or private. And it's kind of a little bit of a hassle to set up because it's just not that good. Because I want there to be a protocol that is seriously universal, multi-platform. You could implement it on Android, iOS, Windows, macOS, Linux. I really need a universal protocol for file share. But no, that hasn't happened, and that's why I'm making this video, because there's no easy way to send a file to someone in a completely universal way. And that's why I'm recommending all of these apps and services to you, so that you can find something that you actually like, but at the same time be free and open source software, have some sort of security element to it. And also, these apps are universal. If something like Nearby Share or Apple Airdrop or whatever was multi-platform and universal, then that would solve the problem that, Nearby Share and Airdrop is exclusive to these platforms, and if you're not on this platform, then you're just isolated from using this protocol. So now, with all of that being said, I just want to take some time to wrap up the services and thoughts I had throughout the video. Cloud hosting is probably the most convenient and awesome solution I have recommended today. Well, at least for the category, because it's a set and forget kind of solution where you just upload it to the cloud, and as long as your recipient wants to download it without any restrictions on your part or whatever active timer you set on that or download limit, then they can just pull it whenever they want to without, again, any restrictions on your part. It's just really easy and convenient because you just share that link and they open that link in any web browser. So it kind of is really a universal solution that kind of doesn't really require downloading software. All you need to do is register an account for something like Fill-In, or if you want to use the temporary cloud hosting solutions, then that also works too. But yeah, cloud hosting is just really good for a lot of different reasons. And then we have Decentralized Nodes, which makes file sharing really secure because it has a lot of different secure layers from sending that file to receiving that file. But then there's also clear downsides to stuff like Onion Share and Surge, because those nodes are really slow. And with something like both Onion Share and Surge, they're pretty much somewhat exclusive to the desktop OS platform. But even so, it's there if you need that extra security. And again, they don't really have download size limits or anything like that. And then probably one of the best ones of them all out of the categories is WebRTC transfer, because all you need to do is go into your web browser, get someone else to get on their web browser, or if you have another device, go on that device, get on the web browser, just type in the link, and you'll find your devices instantly. Like, it's no hassle at all. And then the added benefit of your router actually doing the file transfer without any external server responsible for receiving and sending that file just adds a lot of security to it. It's really fast process, and it's seriously really useful. Like, if you just met someone and you don't want to give them your email or your phone number or whatever for an IM, and you need to send them a file, well, a good way to do that is like, let's say you're at school or something, just be on the same network, go on ShareDrop or Blimp or whatever, and then that's how you share the file without exchanging any personal information, just as a way in case you don't want to go the email route or whatever, or the phone number route, because in that way you do need their personal information in order for you to send like a link to your fill-in folder containing all the media and stuff. So, ShareDrop and WebRTC have a lot of good use cases and purposes. So I really do recommend you look into the WebRTC transfer apps I recommended today. Same thing with Sharik and LANDrop, which is the LAN peer-to-peer category. It's really good because as long as your devices are connected to the same network, and it would be really convenient if all of your devices had the apps for Sharik and LANDrop, then file sharing is really made easy. It's probably a little bit more easier than the WebRTC apps just because there's no signaling server required in order for your devices to communicate with each other, because it's all done locally on your home network by creating that local network address that your devices just connect to. And it would be cool if you were just to go out somewhere and someone else had like the LandDrop app or Sharik, well, you guys could use that to transfer files to each other without needing, you know, nearby share or Airdrop, or even like going to sharedrop. Sharedrop.io. Like, again, there's a lot of good use cases for LAN peer-to-peer apps, and it really does rival WebRTC, but I don't really know which one's better. Probably WebRTC, because again, with Sharik and LandDrop, you do need to download this software in order for you to at least send a file. With the other WebRTC, like sharedrop.io, you just need to go to your web browser. And lastly, we have IMs, which they're just instant messengers. They work their own ways. Signal has encryption, but it's centralized, and Session is encrypted, but it's decentralized. And WhatsApp and whatever, they are universal in a way, but you just have to assess if you just need an IM. But I would recommend at least checking out the temporary cloud hosting solutions, just in case, you know, you need to send a file that maybe Signal or Session doesn't support because you reached the upload limit. So again, there's strengths and weaknesses, but that's up to you to decide. And in a way, I'm not really looking too much for a future where my phone and my computer can even more communicate with each other. So now I can see desktop notifications and mobile notifications across both devices. Like, a universal protocol for that would be awesome, but we have to start somewhere. And I just want to start with file sharing, make that simple, and then that future of cross-device notifications and stuff, you can make that later in the future, but at least start with file sharing in a universal process. And I do think we have achieved that with all of the apps I recommend. It doesn't matter what category there are in. Universal cross-device connectivity is real. It exists and it works really well. It's a viable solution as long as you know how they work and what you're looking for. And it's just really awesome. It's super awesome that these apps exist, like Sharik and ShareDrop. That cross-device connectivity is simple, it's instant, it's secure, it's open source. These apps are changing the game. It's really cool. But yeah, if you just really wanted to send files across your device, well, I hope you don't forget that a cable is a viable solution as well. If you enjoyed this video, then please give me a like. And if you didn't like what you see, well, I guess I'm just not gonna file share with you my sick gaming clips montage. But if you did like what you see, please like, comment, and subscribe. But trust me, you're gonna wanna see that sick gaming clips montage. I know this video was probably a mess because there's a lot of different things I talked about and mentioning a whole bunch of different apps and services. So because of that, I have listed down below a link where you can find all of the apps and services I linked down below with their source code, any additional information, and it's just to make everything I said easy to find. Also, I have decided that for a little while, I'm going to create short formed content on YouTube. So, you know, those basic vertical videos that are less than 60 seconds. Yeah, I'm going to start making that videos just to see how they go. And pretty much they're all going to be original content. So stuff I have not talked about on this channel before. But a few videos, they might have little bits of information that I've mentioned in previous videos. But for the majority, they're going to be 100% original content. I hope you enjoy those videos when I start making them, because they are still about like my passions and stuff. So we're gonna see if I could really bump that down to less than 60 seconds, because we all know from my previous videos I like to talk a whole lot, that it's above like 30 minutes for a video and stuff like that, and 50 minutes for a video. I have no idea how long this video is gonna be, but you already know it was way too long. I know. But yeah, so yeah, go please check out those shorts when I start making them. And for this video, so thank you so much for watching. I know it was a long video, but At least thanks for watching. So yeah, see you when I start making my shorts videos. Bye bye.